Okay, ready to go. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed your first session this morning. Stuart and I are going to do a session on active learning using a low technology approach. My name is Dee Vyas and I work for the digital education specialist team as a digital education specialist, and we're in lead. Stuart, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Stuart Parkin, same as I'm a digital education specialist at Manchester Met.
Having attended this session, hopefully you'll have, just going to move that out of the way, have a idea of a low technological approach to interactive teaching. We'll review some examples as well, and we'll show you how you can use the TREC model as part of the learning process to design and deliver engaging active learning. I came across this quote, which I thought was very appropriate, that we sometimes get lost in the fact it's all about technology. And Etienne Wenger said it's not necessarily about technology, it's about creating that community of learning together and how we learn together. And sometimes technology becomes a distraction in what we do and how we use it. So I always was interested in having started a very long time ago where technology was very much an exclusive thing, to look at how you could have a toolkit, a resource kit of using technologies that weren't particularly digital. What we'd like you to do to begin with is, in the chat, would you kindly please add your thoughts on how you currently make your sessions interactive? And I'm expecting about 95% will be digital. So we'll just give you a few seconds on that, and my colleague Stuart will kindly feedback after the next slide. We all know active learning, and this is very much just going back over it. That's about engaging. It's about creating that community where everyone feels included, is inclusive, and it's engaging. And this is one of the things that's come out from the internal student survey at Met as well, where students wanted to be a part of the delivery and the engagement process. They didn't want to be talked to. And it's also about sharing, getting the students to be a part of that session where they share their thoughts, and not just you deliver information to them. And that's important. But the toolkit itself, which we'll highlight today, is specifically designed to maximize involvement. And it shows you 52 different ways of enhancing student motivation and engagement, but they're all based on key pedagogical principles underpinning learning and teaching themselves. The context for this session came about really when I kind of did some background reading and came up with these kind of facts, which I thought were quite interesting, and revealing that 20% of students during lockdown didn't have access to laptops or digital devices, and many were sharing Wi-Fi at home or didn't have an appropriate place to be able to actually carry out their studies. The cost of living, fuel poverty, these are affecting renting, these are affecting students also, and having an adverse effect on their mental and mental well-being. So this is things to consider. And last year, of all the students we have, 20 million was provided by the government to support students facing digital poverty, which is quite poor in the sense of how many students we have and the digital poverty that is around. And furthermore, that 20% of people currently, which I thought was quite scary, was age 8 to 24, actually aren't able to get online. So we've got this drive to be digital, but sometimes we forget that everybody isn't digital. I think that's an important thing to consider. Stuart, do you want to just feedback on what we got?
Yeah, sure. It's there's a really good mix, to be honest, Dee. I think you were quite pessimistic with thinking it was all going to be digital. But no, there's real mix, and some which are, I'd say, ambivalent to whether they're digital or analog. So I've got asking questions, lots of polling, think, pair, share activities, which can be obviously either. Yeah, a lot of use of Menti, Padlet, discussion in groups and pairs, using Lego toys, objects, paper-based tools as well. So yeah, there is a lot of analog hands-on stuff as well. So I was quite shocked. I think quite used to nothing going into chats when you ask these questions, but I think we're being in an active learning community. There was a lot of responses, which was really good.
Thank you very much. That's really great to hear, and always great to see that people are using non-digital aspects of student engagement. The scenario we wanted to kind of put to you today was that you arrive in a classroom, you've designed your session, you discover that either there's a power cut or the digital aspect of your session won't work. The question would be then, how would you react in relation to what you've done in terms of its digital technology dependent learning? The session you may be using some kind of digital polling, and we wanted to know what would you do then to facilitate on this occasion, and would you then carry on with the session? Would you just do a passive session? Would you then think, okay, what can I do? Have I got another tool in my bag which I can pull out, which doesn't need digital? And it's that scenario we're kind of trying to push you with, having these ideas, having these extra tools you can use in the classroom, and already some of you are using, which is great to see. The cards themselves are developed by the Advanced HE Academy for any taught environment where they provide a high impact, low technological approach to enhancing the student engagement in the classroom. They're generic, so you can adapt them to what you want, even though the cards are laid out as they are. So when we work through in the next slide, we'll show how you can do that. But they're all underpinned with a focus, having that pedagogical approach that can be used in teaching themselves. Here's three of the cards. One of my favorite cards is paper airlines, and I'll explain to you as we go on. The cards provide a variety of engagement tools. You can adopt and encourage meaningful interactions in your classrooms. On the bottom of the card, you'll see a face-to-face or a B for delivery for a remote face-to-face and an R for remote. But what you can do, and what I discovered as I've worked with the cards, is you can adapt the cards accordingly to the situation you're in, and they don't necessarily have to be used for that purpose. Here's a card, it's a flip summary, and with this card, you pass the traditional approach of summarizing your session back to the students. They could work in pairs or groups, but in this case, you then go back to what they've summarized to you. Maybe this could be in writing, and then you could then create a summary of the teaching session from the summaries provided by the students. Hopefully from their reflection, you'll be able to determine whether actually they're comparing their replies to their learning outcomes, you hope, and that hopefully will guide you on what's actually being taught and what's actually being learned. But also what it does is, if you do it this way, it gives every student a voice without having to ask anybody to particularly to put their hand up. In this case, you're going to adapt the use of a card. So they use a chat box. So you would be online using the chat box. Normally, well, what you could do in the classroom, where you could add questions to a wall or a board, where you've got question 1 could be green, question 2 could be yellow. Students can then answer the questions. If they have the answer, they can ask another question, and they can also ask for explanation. At the end of a session, you can look at the wall, and then you can use it in the future as part of a Q&A session. But it gives you that option to look at a different way of approaching student engagement. And also, as I've said, it's very inclusive in terms of sometimes you'll get students who aren't participating, and they'll be the same ones for the same session. Hopefully this will give them the opportunity to actually get engaged. Next 2 slides highlight feedback we obtained from a couple of sessions I've already delivered with colleagues at the Manchester Met. And the first one was traffic lights. You give 3 pieces of coloured paper to the students, and you ask them a question relating to their understanding during the session, or it could be at the end of a session, where green, they get it, yellow, they kind of get it, and red, they don't get it. Great way of giving instant feedback on the session, and it'll also hopefully highlight how the students may require additional support or resources. In terms of the feedback we got for that session, was that a great way of engaging understanding. It's important that all the students are there sometimes, because if you haven't got all the students and you've only got a group of students attending, then it won't be as constructive as it should be. Good for rating their experience of X, Y, and Z. For example, in project management, if somebody has lots of experience, they would use green. And they can also use it in a quiz format where you can ask a question and see how many students pick a particular color. So there are ways you can adapt them, as I was saying to you earlier. One of my favorites is paper aeroplanes, which I mentioned in the previous session I was at, and where you give students a scrap of paper as they enter the room. You ask them to either write the answer on the paper, give a summary of the session you've delivered, and just get them to put their thoughts on that piece of paper. Now, this could be further adapted where they did group work together, and then they created an aeroplane from that and threw it in the air towards you. It creates a great buzz in the class itself, and you can read them out in the classroom itself, or you can use them later and feedback to the students. People liked in the feedback, they came back with, like the idea, useful alternative to using Vevox and Kahoot, which we use at the ManMet, and of course most of you will have used, hopefully, for gathering feedback at the end of a class. You could adapt it and also use it on a first session where you could ask the students, when you deliver your first session, how they feel in terms of being at university, their fears, their hopes, what they expect to get out of university, and then you could use it as an icebreaker as well if you wanted to. But it's really simple, it's really effective. You could use it for mid-unit feedback also, rather than posting student a poll online or a form online to get them to do that, and sometimes not getting all the students to feedback on how the unit's going. And it's also a way of using it in careers, as somebody's pointed out, the way where you can engage students in career thinking type questions. I delivered this session with staff at the away in Department of Apparel or Fashion Studies, and it was interesting how competitive they all became in terms of creating aeroplanes and seeing which went the further. But I wanted to ask them how they could feed back on the session, if they had any questions, what was relevant to the session that I had delivered, and it was great to see what came out. So I'll just play that quick video. So as you can see from there, it became quite competitive in terms of creating aeroplanes. So you could even have a kind of league of aeroplanes to see whose aeroplane went the furthest. But I've used that a couple of times, and it does kind of work as an icebreaker to get people to move around and think of what they could do. What we've also done today is Stuart will kindly, hopefully, be able to post that Padlet link in the chat, and we've added 3 forms of interaction that can be carried out with students. What we'd like you to do, and it won't maybe not be possible in the session, but during this hour-long session, is just to have a look at them and feedback on how you think you could use them within your teaching and learning, and we're happy to share that Padlet with you at the end as well. What I wanted to introduce you to was the track model devised by my colleagues, or our colleagues in Leeds, Rod Cullinall and McCabe in 2021. Some of you may have seen this already, and it's a model developed to help academics in HE in any discipline to develop and deliver engaging active learning. It's a framework where you review any current delivery and look at opportunity to turn the presentation content into activities. What you can do with this is, as I talked about, is you have the trigger. Now, the trigger could be online in your VLE. It could be some kind of discussion forum, wherever you want to do it. But within the classroom itself, you'd use, where you have the live session, you could use these non-digital techniques to review what the students have told you already when you've used the trigger. And it could be regarding a concept, an idea, or some reading you've asked them to do. Compare it with the evidence that you've already got regarding this task you've set them within the classroom. And then you can consolidate and reflect it again to the VLE, or you could use a Padlet there if you want to. But this can be done in Moodle and in Teams if you're using somewhere Canvas or something else. And the idea is to create a link, that bridge between the sessions, and you have that feedback loop. So the session doesn't become exclusive, it becomes an inclusive session. But you could do over a number of sessions, and it provides the opportunity for you to look at how students are learning and whether what you're teaching is relevant to what they want to know sometimes. So it's a great little model, and you can adapt it as you want with however the session you want to deliver it with. What we've done here is when there is a summary, but we've not actually summarized the session. So what we'd like to do is we'd like you to add in the chat, or if anyone wishes to turn on the mic, and hopefully we've just got a couple more minutes, Isabel, to say to people, how do you think, what is the summary of our session before I share it with you? We'll just give you a minute on that. If anybody wants to turn the chat, please do. Sorry, turn the mic on, please do.
A bit shyer on this, Dee.
That's all right.
3 methods of student engagement from Viv in the chat there.
It's something we only came up with recently, so as we go on, we'll try it more and see what happens.
So did I gather that there is 52? You've got 52. It's like a full set of playing cards.
It is, and there's two blank cards where you can create your own if you come up with some ideas and then share it with other people. Yes.
Yeah. Do you know whether anybody just randomly picks one by chat, or do they tend to go through and find what's most suitable?
I've not come across anyone who does it randomly yet, but I think everyone has a look at their cards and has a look and sees it's relevant to what they're doing most of the time. I don't think anybody wants to take that chance of let's play this card and see what happens, which would be interesting, of course. But in terms of summary, thank you for those who've typed something in the chat. In terms of summary, hopefully we've highlighted a couple of methods of using a low technological approach to active learning, the ability to adapt and repurpose and be selective in their use in terms of learning outcomes, and make learning more engaging and accessible to all. And also have a low tech and high tech approach. I always think it's handy to have an approach where you've got both in your toolkit, just in case something goes wrong. And it's getting that, and so I'll leave this, and this is one of your quotes, Isabel, I think, so it's quite handy. And I didn't pick it on purpose, I promise. Getting the students to buy in to active learning is establishing expectations on what's involved and how we design our active learning effectively. So I think it's important that when we look at these sessions, is to make sure that we get the students engaged in any way we can do.